Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have the roll call, please?
Alderman Grotti.
Here.
Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Taylor. Alderman Sevenick.
Here.
Alderman Collier.
Here.
Alderman Kruger.
Here.
Alderman Zielinski. Alderman Benner has been excused.
The first item on tonight's agenda is a public hearing for the proposed special use permit for Fork Farms LLC. Director Buck, could you explain this for us, please?
Sure, thank you. This is a special use application. This is the public hearing for that for Fork Farms LLC. They are a startup agricultural technology company. They're looking to locate their business at 1101 Midway Road, which is the corner of Parkside and Midway, the southwest corner. Property currently has a vacant building. It's about 12,000 square feet in size. Fork Farms is proposing to use the building and the site to operate a commercial greenhouse. Additionally, they're going to propose to install a grow system assembly room, future retail area, and a showroom. Commercial greenhouse use itself requires a special use permit within the C1 General Commercial District. The other uses are all permitted uses.
Okay, thank you. If there's anyone here this evening who would like to make comments on the proposal for Fork Farms LLC, you could do so now. We'll discuss it as a common council later in the meeting. So if there's anyone that would like to, you could step up to the microphone and state your name and address. And seeing no one, we'll call the public hearing to a close. We'll move on to public comments on any matter of concern to the city. If there's anyone who wishes to make a comment to the common council this evening, if you could step up to the microphone. Looks like he beat you out.
Tim Jacobson, 732 Paris Street. Last time I was here, we were talking about the Racine Street Bridge, and of course I saw in the paper about the veto and everything, and you give everybody time to just think a little more before you guys take further action. So it just keeps turning in my head, but I think one of the comments was that we didn't run for office to raise taxes, and start doing some rudimentary math in my head. And the one thing, by not building a new bridge, you're actually going to raise taxes even more than if you don't. That bridge is 65 years old. You do the rehab, and I've been involved in equipment rehab, so I know how smooth those things don't go. You know, you're going to get it apart, and some things aren't going to fit, bolts aren't going to match up with holes and things like that. So that $7 million rehab, you can probably say it's going to be between 7 and 9. And you'll probably get 30, maybe 35 years out of that rehab. Then you have a 100-year-old bridge that I would be hard-pressed to be convinced that your liability insurance carrier would let you rehab a 100-year-old bridge again. So now you're 30 years, 35 years from now, you're going to be in the same position of having to rebuild a new bridge. Now that new bridge, if they do today, is estimated to be 20 and 25 million. And the state's paying for the new bridge as well as the rehab. There's been some people come up to me and during this last couple of weeks, they didn't know that they would pay for the new bridge, but they would the rehab. So that information out there is incorrect, whoever's got it or whoever's coming up with it. But anyways, that 20 to $25 million bridge, you're going to have a lifespan of 75 years. And then, even then, you might look at a rehab. But you're going to be spending 35 years from now, that 20 to $25 million bridge is going to probably be 35 to 40 million. Because then they got you. They know you're not going to do anything else. So you're looking at raising taxes not only on the city of Menasha, but the whole state of Wisconsin by $19 million. We won't spend $19 million operating that bridge. And even if we do, then you tell the state, get your cameras and everything out of our tower and hire your own bridge tender for the 114 bridge. Or the cost of doing your bridge is going to be for the cost of the operation of both. Play the game, get them, go after them. But your argument isn't here amongst each other. Your argument is with the department down in Madison. And the other thing is there's a reason the state took ownership of all the bridges in Wisconsin. Because you have small communities like Menasha that aren't going to afford to build new ones on their own. And they became crumbling junk, hazardous. And you're going to have, you could wind up with an M35 very easily. And that's the bridge in Minnesota that collapsed and killed about a dozen people. And then the politicians will stand around like they did and go, who did that? But all of this going on is going to go for a full cycle. It'll come back. The state of Wisconsin is going to see that these communities can't afford these bridges, and they'll take ownership again. I guarantee it. Or we won't have bridges. But that's the thing you got to do. And that intersection, you know, and I have all the sympathy for the store owners that everyone does, but that intersection at Racine Street is going to be closed for a year or whatever estimated time they have, whether they rehab or whether they build new. That counterweight is under that intersection, and that will be cut wide open to get that out. That'll be a project, because I don't know if any of you have ever seen the counterweight for one of these bridges, but it's a block of concrete about as big as this room. So that intersection's down for whatever construction project is determined. And the other thing, I did start a project for that bridge before I left work, and it's starting to collect a lot of dust. So I need you guys to make up your mind. The DOT will install under their contract, whichever way you go, but I get antsy. I need to get this going before it's too late. Thank you. Just something to consider while you're waiting to take other action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Hi, good evening. I'm Mary Myers. I live in Menasha. I've been a resident for 30 years, over 30 years. I live on Broad Street, and I'm going to be bringing up an issue tonight that I want everyone to listen to and deal with it somehow. Lately, actually this year, it has been out of control. It is the fireworks, the mortar fireworks. They're supposed to be for July 4th. And that way it's legal. Well, in our neighborhood, they're June 30th, July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd, July 4th, July 5th, July 6th. They're all hours of the day or night. People don't really care. They don't care if you work or if you don't work. They don't care if they bother your animals. They don't care about anything. You call the police, they come over, they talk to them, they give them a verbal warning. Well, okay, 10 minutes later, the police drive away, and guess who's back at it again? You come up and talk to these people, you kind of get in their face about it, and they say, I don't really care. I don't care about dogs, I don't care about anybody. I just want to have fun. And they're usually under the influence, not all of them, but a majority of them are under the influence of alcohol. So I know that these mortar fireworks are illegal, so where are all the permits? Are the permits been given to these people, or are they just doing their own thing? They have no respect for the police. Like I said, the police walk away, drive away, and they're back at it again, which is really sad. I've worked ER trauma as an RN for 30 years, and I've seen a lot of injuries for people. Burns, eye injuries, fingers, hands removed, and just recently, if you've read the news about that little girl from Clintonville that died because of fireworks. So not only injuries, but think about how close these houses are together on Broad Street and First Street and around the community. Aren't you concerned about fires? I don't know. I am. And let's not forget about the dogs. They don't appreciate this either, and I'm sure the cats don't either. And I understand that the mayor and Nina had 91 complaints I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I've heard, and is addressing this issue by not tolerating it. And I was hoping that this community of Menasha would follow suit. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Myers. Is there anyone else this evening?
Kim Schick, 527 First Street. I've lived in my house since 1976. I think this year was about the worst that I've ever seen for fireworks. Between First and Racine Corner and Appleton and Broad, living right in mid-block, it gets terrible. I mean, it was just horrendous. And the big stuff, it's not just the small stuff and the bottle rockets. I mean, it's just, I'm just concerned about, like Mary said, the fire risk and just the noise and overall disrespect. So if there's anything you guys can do, I really appreciate it. Appreciate your help. I realize the police you guys are out dealing with everything else. So and again, you really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to the minutes and communications. Do we have a motion? Alderman Seven?
Mayor, before we do that, Alderman Taylor had contacted me. If this needs an ordinance change or not, we might need to do this, but for instance, the fireworks issue. I'd like to right now be able to ask that be placed on the agenda for the next meeting. That's like an appropriate way of doing it without further discussion, because there's open meetings law. We would love to talk and discuss that right now, but we can't do that legally. So I would like to see that on the agenda, and I would like to see our agenda change so that we can address these, so that when the people come to these meetings, they know that at the next meeting, it's going to be on the agenda.
And you can place anything on the agenda as long as it's something that we would take a vote on. That's typically what I require to get on the agenda.
Okay,
So-
and I wouldn't have a problem even if we had to have a discussion section of that. Just as long as it appears on the agenda, that the public knows, and that it's part of the open meetings law.
And that would go on a committee agenda if you just wanted discussion typically.
Okay. Well, I mean, I may have to come in and change the agenda than how we do business up here. But anyways, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would like to receive minutes A through F and communications G through J.
Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Taylor?
Mr. Mayor, at my last meeting, you had informed the public that I left the meeting, I guess the word was unexcused. I left the meeting. And I didn't know for a potty break that I have to ask your permission for a hall pass or for a bathroom pass. Mayor.
And you never came back, Alderman Taylor.
Pardon me?
And you never came back.
I know it. I was downstairs in the restroom, and the meeting adjourned. And it was at the very end of the meeting, Mayor, and I didn't know that I had
Mr.
to ask
Taylor,
your permission to go to the
is this on the
restroom.
agenda?
Was it inappropriate for you? Yes. Is it appropriate for me? Yes. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Alderman Kruger?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Brian from the Parks Department about the the Lawson Trail or the Lawson Canal grant that you are trying to, or intending to apply for. If you could just elaborate on that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Well, that's a great question, and I tried to be as brief as possible in my memo to kind of summarize where we're at. Really, I guess the takeaway from the memo here is that I think most of you are aware, this is a very complex project, been ongoing for several years. So what we're trying to do is sort of simultaneously design the project and find money for it. So recently what's been happening is we've had a series of discussions with DNR, most of them quite favorable to what we want to do, but there's a lot of boxes to check, as you can imagine, on a project such as this. And so I can't tell you exactly at this point what project we'd be bringing forward. We're trying to match it up with these grant sources so we can increase our chances of success on the grant. So there are, habitat restoration scores high, especially with the NRDA, and so we're trying to customize the grant to what they would fund and also meet our needs. So I mentioned a couple things in here. The canal is something they like, but there's a lot of complexity there. There's some projects along the main channel of the Fox River that they like from a habitat restoration of the shoreline that they like, and that we would potentially like as an extension of the project we completed down there in 2015. So rest assured that I'll be bringing back some more details once we can sort of customize this. It'll probably go to the park board, maybe the plan commission, ultimately the council for authorization. But I'm not trying to not answer your question. I just don't have a real good answer right now for it, because it's kind of in flux right now.
Who owns the land, the Lawson Canal land around it? Because my understanding is the city does not own it, and part of that was supposed to actually be taken care of with the development, the raising of that building on there, and it wasn't taken care of in that aspect. Am I mistaken on that? Or
So, yeah, David and I have spoken about this. So the sort of the lower portion of the canal is owned by a private entity. And so what we envision is that canal would somehow be acquired, just like the land along the shore was acquired, for that green space and the trail, so that you'd have a contiguous sort of linear green space that would take in the canal and the shoreline. So it's probably, I would say it's to our advantage to acquire that in some fashion, because R. Donnelly, yes, something has to happen there, something has to happen with the canal, something has to happen with Gilbert's site, so this is all sort of in play. So I think it's to our advantage to have control of that canal, because then we can sort of control our own destiny from a recreational development standpoint, rather than have to go through a private entity for it.
Right. Well, in your memo, you did state that during the recent discussions, it appears likely the city will want to acquire the portion of the open canal. What discussions are you talking about? And I don't, maybe I'm not remembering anything, but I don't ever remember anything coming to the council about possible acquisition of any lands within the Gilbert site or that Lawson Canal. And you're stating that during recent discussions. So who are the discussions with, and what's the...
Yeah, it's a great question. So what's been happening, DNR has been the one suggesting that it's probably better that we take a look at acquiring that canal sooner rather than later, just because it makes it less problematic from a planning standpoint. Like I said, then we would control that parcel. We can design and plan and make whatever plans we want accordingly. Just one less hurdle out of the way, and DNR has pointed that out to us.
Well, that's great. It's just that the way it's written, it sounds as if the city or this body has already discussed this and is likely to want to acquire it. When, I'm just going to ask that when this stuff is written down, if it can be tidied up a little bit more, so it's not appearing that the council or the body is actually involved with this at the moment, because it's the first I've heard about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, just one last statement on that. I wanted to at least insert something on that. I'm glad you asked about it, because I wanted to kind of plant the seed that may be coming, down the road here just a little bit, that we may want to acquire that, so that we obviously would come in front of this body at some point if that's what we wanted to do.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. Also, Brian, I have two areas of discussion, kind of piggybacking off of Steve. As you recall, the DNR came through and they did their dye test, and I told Alderman Kruger, I said, why isn't anyone concerned about the Lawson Canal? They can just swim up the Lawson Canal and they're into the Lake Winnebago. So if we're going to be spending all this money, and then maybe the DNR is going to say, no, this has got to be shut off or something, that scares me. So have you discussed that?
They're aware that there is some water flow, and it's a very minimal amount, and it's, I know the DNR folks that tested Sunoco are aware of the Lawson Canal, and
Okay.
they have expressed no desire to get in there and dye test that. I think partially because it's a very complex, structure that exists there that, yeah, I'd never say never, but the chances of a goby working its way up through there is probably.
It's wide open. I don't
Well,
understand the DNR on
No,
that.
no, it's not, there's a drop of like 7 feet between the Lawson Canal and the main
Underground?
river.
Yes.
Yeah, it goes under these pipes and this, and,
Okay.
so,
But you realize with the high water that we just had, that's not the case.
yeah, it does lower the head, you're right.
So anyways, we'll go nowhere with that. But the other thing is you were on vacation, I think, last time, and we discussed the Hart Park basketball court thing. And again, I'm going to show and express my disappointment in the park board's decision on that. And I feel it's the wrong decision. And to help the public, what they want to do is take a full court and turn it into one half court, and then another half court with a real low rim, with the thought of maybe kids using it. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's just going to be a dunk area, and it's going to be damaged in under a year. It's just going to be trouble. As I had mentioned last time, I know that there's a group of guys, about 20, and we shouldn't just base it on just a group of people or whatever, but they've been playing for probably at least the last 5 years, every Sunday, full court basketball there. And for some reason, you want to take that away. The other one is, I've held a basketball tournament at that park for 23 years. And now you're going to take a court away from me and have just one half court for my tournament. Because you're talking about taking that other one and lowering, or having the rim low. So I'm not happy about that decision. If you want to do an experiment or something like that, use a different park that's not as used as often. But this court is used in the community. That'd be like, well, too many kids are using the skateboard park, let's take out some of the ramps and let's shorten them up. That, to me, that's the same kind of thinking. So I just want to express my feelings about that. I don't agree with that decision.
Maybe just to clarify one point on the two half courts, there will be adjustable rims, so if we wanted to raise that other hoop up to 10 feet for your tournament, we could.
Okay. Thank you, I did not know that.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brian, on this Lawson Canal, this is, like your memo states, it is a very, very complex project. And it kind of almost reminds me of the steam plant. We're going to get into it, we're going to get some grants, and then the city's going to be on the hook. Before this body, I would hope, makes any decisions, I would like a detailed map, I would like a detailed description on what needs to be accomplished there. And if my memory recalls this right, last year, was this a budgetary item in your budget, or was this in the CIP budget?
So there's some engineering dollars that were in the TIF 11 and in my regular budget. So, we've been utilizing those resources for some preliminary engineering.
Did I see something like 1.3 million or something on this project?
Yes, but that's a kind of a moving target right now in terms of a date. So that's the part of the complexity here, that we're not sure when that could happen.
Okay. This body needs to have an extremely description and how this whole thing is going to function before we get ourselves out on the limb with such a complex project, and with the amount of dollars that could be involved. So I, for one, would certainly like to see much more detail way before any grants are even thought about being done. Thank you.
But maybe just one more follow-up to that is, and I stated here in the last paragraph, I think we all understand the city doesn't want to expend little if any money for this project, and, that could work out that way, where actually both of these grant sources can match each other, so that's theoretically possible. So that's what I'm working on, is to try to, minimize the city expense to zero if possible. Will that be possible? Maybe not, but that's the goal here, to try to match these monies up.
I don't have the floor anymore, so I'll wait to come around.
Alderman Collier?
I want to say in regards to the park, it's one district over. I see them playing basketball there on Sundays. I see people playing basketball. I think it's the busiest park in the city. And now that you said that they're going to be adjustable hoop on one end, I can see kids breaking their arms, because if they get it down too low and jam, they'll break their arm. So I was hoping maybe you could go back and just now keep it the way it is, or build a half court someplace else in another nice park close, or put it someplace. But an adjustable rim, I can see people getting hurt, because if they can adjust it down to 7 feet, somebody's going to try to jam in at that shouldn't.
Well, let me just say that the way this works is it's not like the users can adjust it. It's put at a certain height and it's locked down. There's hoops like this at Clovis Grove, and there's people, they do dunk on it, but there's also little kids playing on it. So, these hoops are around, and I think I've shared with you that, these things are super durable. You can do chin-ups on these hoops now. They're virtually indestructible.
Then can I ask you at this time that on Sundays you'd have that court set up for 10 feet for the people that have been playing religiously there and for a long time?
I think we could work something out like that.
Thank you.
But it won't be set up like a full court.
No, it'll be, it's not end for end, but they both could be 10 feet.
Then I hope you can keep your one court.
Alderman Kruger?
Yes, Director Buck, on your memo for the downtown vision plan, I talked with you earlier this week on it, and I think it is a good idea to sort of have a vision plan for the downtown. And at that time, I mentioned to you that about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a Connect Communities, sort of the same type of vision plan with Connect Communities, where over 100 people actually showed up for it. And one of the concerns was that it was going to be dropped and nothing would ever become of it, which is kind of what happened. Were you able to take a look at that, and will that information that was gathered during the Connect Communities vision planning be present at these current ones that you are doing?
I have not looked up the Connect Communities information yet. It would definitely be shared with the consultants.
Okay, thank you. And if I'm just going to make my own opinion on one thing here too. In part of the involvement, you're involving developers and realtors in this also. And I'm just going to ask you to please take this into consideration on how much involvement they have. As I see it as a conflict of interest if you have developers and realtors who are going to directly financially benefit from sales or development of anything going on downtown, actually helping guide the city in a direction where they're going to possibly have a financial gain. And so I just would like to ask you to keep that in mind as you go forward with this.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Tungate, when these power canals were put in, there's a certain group of people that still own these power canals, is that correct? There's a couple of them throughout Menasha and Neenah, and it's a lot of the paper industrialists 100 years ago that put these in, and there's a group of people that still run these power canals. So I'm wondering if they've been notified at all too. And you say there's a little bit of water there, but it's a pretty good size stream that comes through there, and also it ran paper machines, so it had to have a lot of current and a lot of flow.
So what you're referring to is the Neenah Menasha Water Power Company, and yes, our research shows that entity still exists, sort of, and Gilbert has relinquished their water rights for that, so technically there's no water rights being spoken for in that canal as of today. we do have some contacts from the water power company, and so that's sort of we're sort of ongoing communication with them to sort of figure that question out, whether we need to pursue water rights or don't, or is it just going to be a free-flowing canal again, which is probably will be just a sort of a free-flowing channel, side channel, if you will.
But it's a man-made canal, it's not the free-flowing river, so someone would have to take ownership and responsibility of it too. But we'll work that out in all the details. I'm confident you'll get all that to us. Director Buck, on the Downtown Vision Plan workshop, it said the city has contracted the consultant team, Place Dynamics. Was that budgeted last year?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and what is the cost of that?
Well, the overall, it's not to exceed 30,000.
30,000? Okay.
And it's actually, Place Dynamics is a market research and economic development firm, but it's a partner group with also SEH, which is a planning and design firm as well.
Okay.
So they'd be tag teaming it.
Okay. And then under a letter to the council from Mayor Merkus, board and commissions appointments, the last one is Sustainability Board, and it says ad hoc, no term. And I thought that ad hoc committees were given a direction, and then when they figure out whatever their findings are, the ad hoc is then disbanded, and this one seems to have no terms.
The direction for the Sustainability Board is to update and provide information on sustainability practices and energy efficiency practices for the community. So it's not a one and you're done type thing. This is an ongoing type committee. So there really isn't a term that it would have a project and be done, kind of like the Red, White, and Blue Committee. They had a project, they finished it, they were done.
Okay. And this is under the guidelines of the state? This is okay to have an ongoing ad hoc?
That was a resolution that was put forward by the council before I was mayor. And the resolution is actually, I believe, on the sustainability page on the city website. I can get you a copy, though, if you would like.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. The consent agenda has an awful lot of items this evening. The first is the minutes to approve from the Common Council from July 5th, the Administration Committee recommendations from July 5th, including the professional service agreement between the City of Menasha and Safe Built Wisconsin for commercial building department services, the request to apply for and receive and spend a taking action with data, use of county environmental health profiles to improve environmental health in the community grant, the Board of Public Works recommendations from July 5th that include a street use application for Otto Grunsky on August 12th, the street use application for Ganther Race to the Lake on August 13th, the street use application for the Twisted Pistons Scholarship Cruisin' on August 17th, the street use application for the Labor Day Parade on September 4th, and the street use application for the Community First Fox Cities Marathon on September 24th, and the recommendation to purchase a Bobcat 5600 Toolcat, including a sand and salt spreader for the total cost of $52,475, and the Plan Commission recommendation from July 11th for the special use permit for Fork Farms with the following conditions: that the submitted 3-year phased improvement plans as proposed within the application be binding on the development, including proposed site work, removal of the driveway on Midway Road closest to the Midway Parkside intersection, and landscaping improvements, and immediate marking striping of the parking stalls within the lot, and that the petitioner annually reports on the status of its operations and site improvements to the city until the 3rd year phased improvements are completed. Also, the recommendation to approve a drainage easement at 835 and 867 Valley Road. Does anyone wish to have any of the items separated? Alderman Kruger?
Yes, I'd like to separate item 10.
Any other? Alderman Zielinski?
Item 9.
And any others? Seeing no others, could we have a motion to approve? Alderman Severnick?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like to approve Common Council minutes, the Administration Committee's recommendation 2-3, and the Board of Public Works recommendations 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the Planning Commission's recommendations 11.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote,
Aye,
please?
discussion.
No discussion on consent items unless they're separated. So-
Motion carried on roll call 7-0.
Item 9 is the recommendation to purchase the Bobcat Toolcat. Do we have a motion? Alderman Sevenick?
Move to recommend the purchase of the Bobcat 560 for a total cost of $52,475.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. We had discussion about this last time in Public Works, and I guess this is a question for you, Mr. Alec. From the discussion and looking over it again, is this mainly the push for purchasing this toolcat instead of the cart beforehand is mainly for snow removal? Is that where it's the main push for this?
Not necessarily the main push. Again, it's something that's multifunctional, and by adding a cab to it, it will be multi-seasonal, so then we will utilize it in the winter months primarily on the trails, and it's a little wide for some of our sidewalks, but that'll free up the Polar Track for getting on the sidewalk, so a little better response time. And this will be large enough that it will do a better job than that, and then yet be small enough, more maneuverable than, say, getting a pickup truck in some of these situations. It's a lot of money, I get that, I understand that.
It's hard for me to vote for something like this.
The other thing, again, is there's always limited funds, and what we're trying to do, again, is look at multifunctional, multi-purpose machines. And I think that if this works out like we think it will open the door for us to eliminate or combined. We currently do have a piece of equipment that's sort of similar. It's a trackless unit. It's a little bit longer, it articulates. It was quite a bit more money than this. That's nearing the end of its useful life. So if this works out as well as we think it is, that's a possibility that at the time that we retire that piece of equipment, we'll not need to replace it. Because again, the impetus for this was to replace the club car cart. Again, that would be used just, probably 6-7 months out of the year, maybe 8. And this opens the door for us to use it year-round. And the fact that with the hydraulic system, it opens the door for us then to use all our skid steer attachments as well. Again, when we have a number of them, we have a stump grinder, we have an auger for planting trees, so I'm looking at it from the urban forest side of things, very useful. So there's a number of things that sort of factored into making this recommendation.
And that eases me to know that we might eliminate equipment in the future. It's still hard because I just don't see the exact need for snow removal on the trails in winter at a speedy pace, because and that's just personal opinion. But well, thank you for explaining some of these issues for us.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Superintendent Alex, I'd just like to say that when you have these multi-uses, it's really good for the community, and you're using these dollars wisely to spread them out throughout the year instead of having some piece just for a single use. So, yeah, it comes at a cost, but instead of spending $20,000 here and then coming back and spending $50 on this, it's a good mix, and things cost. Mayor, I just wanted to say on the consent items that I just wanted to thank all the organizations, Twisted Piston, Labor Day, Marathon. These are all wonderful events for the city.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Sevenick?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just to ease the mind of Alderman Zelinski, too, under the tutelage of our Tim Jacobson, we created a fund years ago called Equipment Depreciation Fund, which helps us in these matters when we have larger pieces of equipment like this. This, too, as we use it, will bill itself all the time. So if we need to replace, or to maintain it, it's a good mechanism. I like that fund. I'd like to use it in other departments if possible, but this way we don't just hit the taxpayer all at once. So I would encourage you to support this, and this is a good way of funding it, and it's an important piece of equipment for the city.
Seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 7-0.
Item 10 is the special use permit for Fork Farms at 1101 Midway Road. The petitioners are here this evening if you do have questions. Alderman Sevenick?
I'll move for the recommendation from the Planning Commission for the special use permit for 1101 Midway Road, the Fork Farms, items A, B, and C.
Is there a second? Second. So motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a few questions on this one. The first one is, will the Fork Farms actually be owning the building, or will they be leasing the building?
Forks Farm, from my understanding, they will be leasing the building.
Leasing it, okay, okay. On the recommendations on number 3, it says the petitioner annually reports the status of its operations and site improvements to the city. What is meant by operations? Are we talking the day-to-day operations, what they're doing inside the building? Or what's the definition of having to report the operations to the city?
Sure, this was a recommendation that was added by the Plan Commission. Because it's a phased approach, a 3-year phased approach, they'll be doing different things in each year. We're going to make sure they're hitting their benchmarks, and if they're not hitting their benchmarks, where they are, so that in the final year of the 3rd phase, all of the items that are in their proposal are getting done. And so they're just not forgotten about.
So the operations are the things that need to be done to the building? Or, well, when it says the status of its operations, are you talking about its actual functioning as a business operations?
Right,
or?
well, it's in their phased approach, so they have multiple phases. They will be expanding a showroom, adding a demonstration area to make sure those things are coming online. That's what's meant by operations. Some of the other items that they had was some landscaping, some paving, removal of a driveway. So we want to know where they are with those aspects as well.
Well, me personally, I have an issue requiring any business to report to a city government on its operations. I have a problem with that. I don't think that should be under the actual improvements that need to be done. That's a different thing, but actually what they're doing as a business and how they're operating their business, I personally don't think that's anything to do with the city at all, and I do have an issue with that. And my second question is why is it a 3-year plan on this? I mean, a lot of the other places, when permits are issued for different stuff, the stuff like paving the parking lot and all that is mandatory. It has to be done right away for the permit. Why is this being delayed till the very end at 3 years instead of on the front end at the first year?
It's being delayed. That was their proposal. So they came and they don't have the financial resource, or they can probably answer this better. Financial resources do it all at one sitting. So they're planning to phase them in over the 3-year time frame, which is the reason for the first condition, and I believe partial reason for the 3rd.
Did you want to comment on that, Alex? Just
Yeah, that's correct. Everything you just said. We're a startup company. We've only been in existence for 3 months, so we're have a very gracious relationship with the owner of the building, and he's doing a lot to help us get started. And we have big plans and a great business model, but it's going to take us a little time to get off the ground and get the resources we need to get the building up to snuff. And we want more than anything to look great as a company too. So these are all things that we'll get done as soon as we possibly can.
Right. And which is great. It's all great. But again, businesses in the past have had to have these requirements done ahead of time and definitely not delay it for 3 years. I mean, I have an issue with that aspect of it. I don't have an issue with the greenhouse or anything like that. I just have an issue of number one, you reporting to the city or to any government on what the operations are of your operation, and the fact that the important stuff like the paving and all that's delayed for 3 years. I mean, I'd have a lot better feeling about if that was actually done in the first phase, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can clear it up, the paving piece is on the back part of the building.
Yep.
So when you immediately see it, we're prioritizing the landscaping, making sure that the paved piece in the front has nice striping on it, which needs to be redone right now. All that we're going to do in this first year. So you'll see an immediate improvement, but then by that third year, we'll have the whole site taken care of.
All right, thank you.
You just said you're only in existence for 3 months. I don't want you to sell yourself short since you are on TV, because this isn't something that just happened in 3 months. So if you just want to elaborate that the history goes back quite a bit further.
Yeah, we've been working on our patents for the last 7 years, and now we have 2. It's indoor agriculture technology, so we're providing indoor growing units to schools and food pantries with a nonprofit partnership that we have. We have curriculum that goes along with it. And then in addition, we're utilizing the building to assemble these units and also grow food commercially, because our patents are really around energy efficiency. So we're going to be able to grow food more energy, water, and land efficient than if you were to grow outdoors. So we know the concept has a lot of potential. We have buyers lined up to grow our stuff, but we need you guys to support us and get us off to the races here. So,
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, your company has a good business model, but you are also in a professional business park. And we have had everyone else out there abide by our ordinances and what we expect when a company starts up in these projects. And I was out on your campus and looked at it. You're not too far off, and the city's not asking for that much. And I think that all these things should be done before you start your business. You're leasing the property, so your landlord should be taking care of these things for you. And if we do this for you, then we do it for the next guy, and then all of a sudden our business park, hey, wait a minute, that was 2 years on that guy, that was 3 years on that guy, and it doesn't work. And so I would think that your landlord could pony up here and take care of the issues that need to be done on the property.
yeah, if I can expand on that a little bit. We have a really special relationship with Commercial Horizons, which is the owner of the building. And they've been essentially donating space to us. And so while they are our landlord and they do own the space, our rent is very little right now. And there's no way that this could have happened without his generous support. I mean, this really came down to Paul Klister and his team really helped us out. And to be honest, we would love nothing more than to do that. And I'll reiterate that we will get to that as soon as we can. But if that does become a requirement of the special use permit, we won't be able to start this business. And it's been something we've been working on a really long time. So.
Okay, and then looking at the people that abide by our laws in the past and the future people in the future, how do we treat them? As if we treat you this way, what do we open up for the next group of people that come in and say, well, you don't have to have this and you don't have to have this, and that's what our laws state, our ordinances state, that in this business park, this is what, when this business is brought back up to a different level here, that this criteria has to be met. So there's got to be some sensitivity towards us up here, because we can't say to one person, fine, it's okay, we'll let you go, and the next guy say, you got to have this done when this opens. So I don't see where we can have that exceptions in that big of time.
Yeah.
Quick Trip just built across the street. What if we said, you don't have to have a driveway in for 3 years, and the landscaping in the pond maybe 2 years, and it's not how it happens.
Yeah, we're not Quick Trip. And the alternative here is that this building is going to sit vacant, right? That it was vacant before we took over, and we plan on doing a nice improvement to the signage that's there, the landscaping.
And we get taxes on it no matter if it's full or empty. But all I'm talking about here is let's focus on the ordinances that we have and the planning we have for our business park here.
Well,
or if it's a residential area with homes, we have different plans that have to be met.
But don't you think there's a significant benefit to having that space utilized as opposed to sitting empty?
Certainly, that's not the question again, sir. I'm telling you, we have to explain this to other people up here, and the attorney corrects us all the time that you can't treat this person like this and this person like that, and these laws are on the books here, and we can't treat people differently. And this is a professional business park. And it's not, you guys aren't that far off, the owner's not that far off to putting this back and having it function properly. But I don't think you see our side of it.
I absolutely do. I would love nothing more than to take care of this immediately, but those funds just literally don't exist. So I would love to do that, and I see your side of it, absolutely, and we'll get it through as soon as we possibly
For that,
can.
I can't treat you different than somebody else or somebody else different than you. And for that reason, I can't vote for it at this time because of the violation of our own laws. Thank you.
Alderman Collier.
Oh, well, I guess me and Alderman Taylor will differ on this a little bit. Thank you. It comes down to thinking out of the box, and yeah, we have ordinances. You ain't supposed to blow off fireworks. You ain't supposed to do this. You ain't supposed to do that. I'm looking at it as an empty building that'll rot and do nothing. These people don't have a lot of money. They're trying to start something up. I'm willing to flex with them and take a chance like we've done on other things in Menasha years ago and hope for the best because we don't have a lot going on. This is an opportunity, and if it grows, the tax base will grow. In 3 years, if they do not have their requirements done, they will be asked why, and according to what they say, it will be done. I want to give them a chance. I want other people to come to Menasha. I don't want to send them away thinking that we're better than anybody. I'm trying to get stuff downtown. I want rules better and safer. I want Menasha to be a success. So I got to vote for this because it's something good coming to Menasha. You know, I won't be able to sell my stuff out of my garden now maybe down the road, but I'm hoping that he does well. So I'm voting for it, and I hope you guys realize the plus it gives us and the problems that might come with it. But this is not an easy job. You got to make hard decisions, and you got to talk to people. Thanks.
Alderman Kruger.
Yeah, I would actually like to offer an amendment to remove the requirement to report the status of its operations to the city. I firmly believe that that shouldn't be part of the city. The city shouldn't be updated on its operations. I don't know of any other company that has to report to the city when they come in for development or anything else. I don't think Faith Technology is reporting on a yearly basis what it's doing. So I would like to offer an amendment to remove the wording, the status of its operations from the recommendations, line number 3 from the requirements.
There's a motion and a second. So you just want to eliminate item C is basically what you want to do? Oh, okay, so it would read, so your amendment is to have item C read, the petitioner annually reports the status of site improvements to the city until the third phase year improvements are completed. Okay. So there's a motion, a second. Does anyone have discussion on just the amendment at this
That's
time?
what I was going to suggest, because his
Okay.
motion didn't say that, but that's the way it should be.
Okay. Alderman Taylor on the amendment?
Alderman Collier and I don't
Alderman Taylor,
agree on
this
things.
is not appropriate.
Is this the amendment?
Is this
Ron?
about the
I'm the
amendment?
amendment, and I'm asking a question.
Okay, you could do it
And I'm
without,
just doing what you didn't say it to him, you know?
but I don't
Get to
think,
stick out the same direction. Attorney Captain, do we have a right to ask for a report that this document's asking for?
oh, Alderman, Attorney Captain, I'm sorry.
They can ask for it, yes.
Okay, and how are we putting our selves out there for lawsuits or potential risk with other companies by not having the building brought up to the standards that we ask for when it's taken over by somebody else?
Attorney Captain, do you have a comment on that? We have to unbury your microphone here.
What is the question?
What type of risk are we putting ourselves at by giving them a a 3-year phased approach versus requiring it being immediately brought up to current standards at occupancy.
I'm not actually familiar with this particular recommendation, nor am I familiar with the meetings that occurred or the application that was provided, so it would have to be something that I would have to look into before I could answer that question. I don't know. But it's just in general, when Common Council approves a permit, it's using its legislative function on that. And that typically is not, it's not subject to challenge. I don't know, because I'm not familiar with anything to do with this particular project.
Did you have a
Okay,
comment?
seeing that, I would like to postpone this to the next meeting and have a written summary on this situation from the attorney before we move forward on this. This is some dangerous waters we're getting into, and we need to postpone this for a week. So I'll make a motion to postpone till the next council meeting.
Is there,
Point of order.
what is your point of order?
Point of order is there's a motion on the floor.
Well, a motion to postpone would override
Overrides.
any other motions that are on the floor. There is no second for that motion, though, at this time. Is there a second? Seeing no second, there's a motion and a second. Alex did, I believe. So there's a motion to postpone. I always forget if postpone can be debated or not. Okay, so is there discussion on the motion to postpone at this time? Alderman Collier?
I'm
This is just on to postpone.
And then I'll take,
Okay. Alderman Nichols? This is just on the postponement, not the actual item on the floor.
Yes, we have a business owner here who's ready to open his doors. It's a startup company. He's done all the planning, everything necessary. He has his place picked out. They're ready to go. And we want to hold up for what? I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to ask whether or not Menasha really is open for business these days.
Alderman Taylor?
I need some, apparently the attorney wasn't even consulted on this, and we have these rules for our different building areas. This one, a professional business park. And if we're violating some rules or putting someone at a disadvantage or advantage, it's nothing about shutting down business here. It's about what this body does, and legally, I don't have any ground to stand on to say to this nice gentleman, yeah, go ahead. And then when the next nice gentleman comes or nice lady comes, I can treat them different every time. I need to know if we are acting legally, if we can do this. And for 2 weeks, they've been in the building, he said already, for a couple of months, and 2 weeks isn't going to hurt anybody. So let's get a legal opinion here.
Alderman Zelensky?
There's a lot of interesting things working into this, and the reason I seconded that motion is that I would like to see the attorney look over this and see what she has to say, and there could be things we could be at fault at. I don't think any of us up here are against businesses coming to the city, and we want to work with you. We've had these come through before, and we always hope for the business to do very well and get the stuff done, but sometimes it just doesn't happen, and I think we should go about this the right way. And I'd like to see the attorney look over this, and
Is
I
it
hate to
appropriate?
delay you.
Is it appropriate for me to interject here?
You can, yeah.
This is just on the motion to postpone, but Alderman Severnick would like to say something, and then if you have something about why it would be time sensitive or not, then I would. I'm sorry, Alderman Grotti is first, but I'll let you speak after the rest of the aldermen.
My question then to you, Alex, is if it is postponed, what's your timetable? How does that affect you?
Before we, do we have unanimous consent to hear from the petitioner?
Sure. And I think your mic went off, so if you want to go back on, no, I can, go ahead then, Alex. I'm all right.
Okay,
Everyone
thanks.
else okay?
Thank you. I want to be clear that I appreciate your sensitivity around this. I do want to make it very clear that this phased plan is minimal. We're not talking about a huge parking lot here. We're talking about 200 square feet in the back of a building. I understand that we may have precedent here. There is the grandfathering laws, right? So let's be sensitive to the fact that, you know, I am walking into a pre-existing space that has all this stuff already, and this is a unique deal with the landlord, right? And we can't go to our landlord and ask for these improvements immediately because of the relationship that we have. And I also want to help you understand that we're not willing to operate illegally, right? We need this special use permit in order to grow food, and we're a farm. And if we don't grow food, we don't have a business. And right now we have employees and we have people that are helping us build out this building to be prepared for a city council that I was really hoping would just be accepting and ready for us here. And delaying this right now is going to have a significant financial impact on us. We're not operating under a $100,000 budget here. You know, we have a limited amount of runway, and we have a great business plan. We have the customers lined up. We have the farm built. I mean, we are ready to go, and I need you to help me do that. So I would implore you to please consider that.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alex, for coming, and thank you for considering the city of Menasha for this. I think this is something that would actually put this community on the map. I feel that strongly about this. This is a new type of industry, and we could be the leaders of this. This could be the new paper industry for the city of Menasha. We are only talking about a permitting process here. The city attorney will work out any details that come after that. We are not giving any special privileges either here.
Alderman Sevenick, I forced everyone else to speak only on the postponement, so
okay.
I'd like to hold you as well, and we can let you go on, because I think you're making a good point.
You're absolutely correct.
So.
All right, then I would encourage everyone to hold off on the postponement. Let me make my remarks, and you'll see why we should move forward. I would vote against the postponement.
So right now, there's a motion on the floor to postpone to the next, is it to the next meeting, or what was it? To the next meeting. Alderman Taylor?
Alex, you can't wait 2 weeks? Is that important that you can't wait for this body
No,
to
we
get a
can't.
legal opinion
I'm
for 2
sorry,
weeks?
sir. We just can't. That would kill us right now. We're at the point where we're running really, really, really fast, and we're put our arms out to take off. That's where we're at right now. We need to be able to fly. I mean, we can't wait a month. A month is an eternity
I said
to me
2
right
weeks.
now. 2 weeks is an eternity to me right now.
Yes. Alderman Collier has a point of order.
And I just would like to see, let's just take a vote, and how it falls,
Mayor, I have the floor, and Alderman, will you please
Alderman-
call him out of order?
He's not, because he asked for a point of order.
And the point of order was not valid at this point.
Thank you.
Alderman Taylor, could you finish so that we could take the vote?
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further comment, could we have, this is a motion to postpone for 3 weeks, actually. There's 3 weeks between the next meeting. If you want to continue to vote on this tonight, then you would vote no. Hold on, you don't have, Steve, could you vote again? Yours didn't. Yeah, unfortunately, your button sometimes has problems. This will be the last meeting at this location, so could you reset that and we could vote again?
I'm going to reset it.
Okay, could you try again? Now it worked.
Now it works.
We'll give you the bad button at the new building, too.
Motion fails on roll call, 1-6.
Okay, so right now, the motion that's on the floor is
The amendment.
to amend item C to remove its operations and. So do we have any discussion on the amendment? Could we take, Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. Director Buck, usually Alderman Benner is here to help us learn more about the discussion at the Plan Commission level. So could you tell us more about the discussion that had surrounded this particular issue?
Sure. Specifically about the annual reporting?
Yes.
Okay. So the Plan Commission, because it's a phased approach, wanted to be kept up to date on what stages the business was in their full 3-year phased build-out. So that includes site improvements, but it also includes the operation. So if they were going to be primarily agricultural, growing, assembly, which is their 2 primary phase 1 operations, or if they're getting more into the retail demonstration aspects. And so they wanted to be kept aware of those as far as operations go, so they can see that the business was progressing without staff having to go out there and do the legwork. I don't know if that answers that.
Could you define a little more clearly what is meant by operations then?
Operations, which is the primary uses of the building itself, because there are 3 distinct uses in there. One is the assembly of the product, another is the growing, which is the greenhouse, which is the only use that requires a special use permit, and the third was the demonstration and retail space. And they have them building out in different time frames in different parts of the building.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, operations in this situation refers to the uses of the building, nothing financially related to the business itself.
No, nothing financially to the business. It's really on where they are with their phased plan and what the city can expect and at what time they can expect those phases to hit. So if year 2 is a certain amount of landscaping, we can go out there and ask them, when is that landscaping going in? If phase 2 was the start of the demonstration area in the retail portion, when is that occupation of that space going to commence?
And why did the Plan Commission feel it was important to make this a condition of the permit?
I can't speak for the Plan Commission totally, but primarily because of the special use. Again, and I guess I should comment on this as well, the only use of this property that needs council approval is the special use permit. That requires it to come through the common council. The operation of the building as is could be occupied by a permitted use right now. So if they drop the food growing portion of their business, which they obviously can't, they wouldn't be here. They would just be occupying the building as it exists. So because of that and that special use, the Plan Commission felt they'd like to see the more primary uses, or the other secondary uses, I should say, which are permitted uses in the district, the retail, the showroom, and the assembly, when those come online. And at what stage you have all the pieces working together.
Okay, and how would you see this amendment affecting the Plan Commission's recommendation, if at all?
I don't see the amendment affecting it that much. It'd be just a little bit more work on staff to go out there and determine where they are with their phases and follow up, rather than the petitioner or the property or the business owner coming to the city saying this is where we are. We'll have to go to them and say, where are you at?
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Kruger?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Is there any other special use permit that the city has, in your knowledge, that has this requirement attached to it anywhere? Is there any precedence for this type of requirement?
In the city of Menasha, I don't know. I can say it in previous jobs, yes, it has been conditions of approval. Because they're proposing a phased approach, conditions of approval can be attached to that proposal. Again, we call it special use permits. Many communities call them conditional use permits. So that use allows conditions to be placed upon it. If it's a permitted use by right or as of right, it's listed as a permitted use, you can't place any extra conditions on it, but because it is the special use, you can.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
As Alex said, this is minimal things that have to be done. Well, they should be done then if they're only minimal.
So this is just on the amendment again, just removing the words "its operations"
Thank you.
and. Alderman Collier, are you on the amendment?
I hope we could take a vote.
Anyone else on the amendment? Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, the motion is to amend item C to remove the three words, its operations and. Yours worked this time.
Motion carried on roll call, 6-1.
Okay, now we are to the motion as amended, which is for the approval of the special use permit with the amended item C. Alderman Severnik?
I agree with what Alderman Kruger was trying to attempt to do. I think it was just really the wording that was incorrect, and it kind of looked like something more than what it was. But again, if I can piggyback to what I was saying earlier about this particular business coming to this community, I think we should be welcoming it with open arms. This is just a permitting process. We're talking about that staff wants to follow up in a different way. We have done this in other cases where people had landscaping requirements, but it was fall. So we were going to check back with them in the summertime when they could get to it, and things like that. In fact, there's some of the conditions I don't even agree with. I mean, I don't think they should have to abandon the driveway that accesses Midway Road. I think that hinders a retail type business. I don't like that where you use only a certain road to get way over to the business.
There's
But
actually
that's
two
part of-
driveways on Midway.
Oh, there are two of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're just moving one?
Yep.
That's fine then. So, but anyways, I mean, we're talking about updating a signage. We're talking about that abandonment of the one driveway and some landscaping. Let's not hold up a business that might just be one of the most important businesses that comes to this community because they didn't plant some trees in the year 2017. So I would encourage everyone to vote for this. Let's just vote for this right away, please.
Is there any other further discussion? Alderman Taylor still has discussion.
I won't moan and groan like Alderman
Please.
Collier, and you should reprimand him when he does that to me.
Please,
Mayor.
could you just move forward?
Okay, thank you. As we're trying to treat everybody fairly here, and
Alderman
our
Taylor,
and the
if you have
people that
nothing
move
to add to the
city.
discussion, we'll take
Mayor,
a
I'm talking
vote.
about this business, that we treat this business fairly
Okay.
and other businesses fairly that move to this community, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
And that's all I'm trying to do here. Let's treat this business as fair as we treat other business. And it's just not a planting of a tree. It's much more than that. And what happens to these things, I've seen them before, they get kicked down the road, you change staff, you change council, nothing gets done. And that's what happens. It's a very visible corner. It's a very professional district out there. And we need to keep our professional business parks functioning properly. And when there's a change, things need to be done and rules need to be followed. That's all I'm pointing out. Nobody here said we're anti-business.
Seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 6-1.
So I just want to comment, Alex, as you were trying to take flight, it just reminded me of how much we've enjoyed the pelicans that have came to Menasha. And I just saw you as being the first pelican taking off. So hopefully you grow and multiply and become a great asset, just like some of the pelicans have become to Menasha and how much we all enjoy them.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you for your support, and we're excited to partner with the city moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just couldn't resist. That's what I saw, the pelican taking off. Item I is action items. The first is the accounts payable and payroll for July 6th through 13th. Is there a motion? Alderman Kruger?
Yes, I'd like to, the accounts payable and payroll for the term of 2/6/2017 through 7/6/2017 through 7/13/2017 in the amount of $646,497.37.
Is a motion and a second? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 7-0.
Item 2 is the beverage operators license applications for 2017 through 19. Do we have a motion? I was just looking too. There are none recommended for denial this evening. If that's what you're... Steve?
Make motion to approve the beverage operators license applications for 2017 through 2019 licensing period.
There's a motion, and a second, to approve the beverage operators license. Geez, I'm having problems too. Beverage operators license applications for the 2017 through 19 period as on the memo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please? Just wanted to get as on the memo in there.
I got it. Motion carried on roll call, 7-0.
Item 3 is the parking enforcement system contract with T2 Systems. Alderman Kruger?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion to approve the parking enforcement system contract with T2 Systems Incorporated.
There's a motion, and a second. Alderman Sevenek.
I would, so that people in the community get an idea of where we're going with this. And of course, this is always like probably one of the biggest issues for people sometimes if they get a parking ticket. So they might want to know a little bit about what we're doing here. And I'd ask if the chief would fill us in on this.
Certainly. Parking ticket system that we currently have is 14 to 15 years old. Had a life expectancy of probably about 7 years. We have been band-aiding the system together as we presented in the 2016 budget hearings, literally purchasing pieces of equipment on eBay to try to make it functional for the last couple of years. As a result, when you have a 14, 15-year-old system, it doesn't have some of the customer service features that, it stinks to get a parking ticket, but sometimes there's reasons and people make mistakes. It's an archaic system. A person would have to come in and drop off either the finance or the police department to pay a ticket. So this has some capabilities, as do all the new parking systems, as far as being able to take a picture of the violation, which cuts down on confusion or persons having concerns that maybe their vehicle wasn't parked in an illegal fashion. And also probably the biggest customer service feature would be that it allows for online ticket payments. And so the person would no longer have to send in the payment or drop the payment off at the police department or city hall. As this was a 2016 project, it got pushed back to 2017 because we really wanted to push in and make sure we found the most economical system. So we had to find kind of that middle ground system that certainly met the needs of the community going forward, but without the bells and whistles that our community didn't need. So that's kind of the direction that we're going at with it. I'm not sure if there are any specific questions or anything you had with it.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, in your document, it's certainly a lengthy document, and with the software and the contracts. My question is that it says tickets bring in approximately $50,000 in revenue to the city each year. How much of that isn't collected?
Actually, that's what actually comes into the city. So that's what the budget amount is. That's what we end up taking.
If you don't have that number, we can get that some other time.
No. The uncollected varies from year to year. So we take in 50,000. We issue approximately about 55,000-ish. It depends on at what point we call them. Every ticket that isn't paid right now for the city of Menasha, we still track. Even in when we used to write tickets by hand, we still have all of that data in an archaic database, which doesn't even flow into this one. So it's a very small fraction as to the 50,000 amount. The 50,000 is on average what we've taken in the last 5 years. So uncollected will vary.
Okay. If you have that number for last year, what wasn't paid, I'd like to see that sometime.
Sure.
Thanks.
Seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 7-0.
Item 4 is an application for an outdoor extension of a Class B licensed premise for Emprise Brewing LLC. The applicant is here, and I have to apologize for telling him that it was going to be at about 6:15. So, do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make the motion to approve the application for outdoor extension of Class B licensed premises for Emprise Brewing LLC, doing business as Emprise Brew Mill at 198 and 200 Main Street, Menasha.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 7-0.
And item 5 is an application for an outdoor dining and extension of Class B premise. Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to approve the application for outdoor dining and extension of Class B licensed premises on public property for Emprise Brewing LLC, doing business as Emprise Brew Mill, 198 and 200 Main Street, Menasha.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Taylor?
I'd just like to welcome you to the downtown. It's a great fit for the 200 block of Main Street at this time. We have such vibrant entrepreneurs in that block, and I think we have one building left to fill, and this is going to be a great asset to the city. Thank you.
Seeing no, whoops, Alderman Sevenek, sorry.
Oh,
Your paper was on top? Okay. Seeing no other discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 7-0.
Thank you for coming tonight.
It's worth the wait.
Item L is appointments. I would ask that we take no action on this at this point. We did reach out to Mr. Stevens, and I did not get the information back to the clerk in time that she could pull that when we didn't hear back from him, and I don't want to appoint someone if they are not wanting to continue. I assume he will, but. Item O is recess. Do we have a motion to recess at this time? Oh, did I miss one?
I think we should go through the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the public comments. Item N is public comments on any matter listed on the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment this evening? Seeing no one, then we'll move to the recess. Do we have a motion to recess? Alderman Sevenek?
Mayor, I'll move at this time to recess to the Personnel Committee. Is that all?
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand at recess. Thank you.